How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about steering and suspension after you lift your Jeep. Now, there's a lot of lift kits out there that don't come with everything, and there's a lot of kits out there that come with everything, but it isn't perfect. If you piece together a lift like I did, this information will help you out tons because there's not much out there on it. The forums just kind of drag you around and don't give you a straight answer. So even some rough country lifts, some high price lifts, they don't come with everything. It just gets you off the ground and get you off-road. And what that has done to the Jeep community, it doesn't matter if you drive a Wrangler, Cherokee, it doesn't matter what Jeep it is, you could get you a lift and it drives like garbage. And everybody says, oh, it's a Jeep, they're going to do that. My Wrangler doesn't drive like that, and with a lot of working and a lot of measurements and a lot of planning, this Cherokee is sitting at 5.5 inches to 6 inches, and it don't drive like a Jeep. It drives like it did when it was stock. That's because we got all the angles, we got everything that's supposed to be where it needs to be stock, okay? In a stock location, we might as well say, because everything's aftermarket now on the front end. So we lifted this Jeep on the channel. You can go back, check it out how I did it. Did it in my backyard, did it with some junkyard parts with some Amazon parts, blah, blah, blah. The first thing you do after you lift a Jeep Cherokee from anywhere from 4.5 inches to higher than that, you might notice like bump steer. So the first place you want to check before you do anything at all is actually start with your drag link and your track bar. Now your track bar and your drag link needs to be parallel. It could be up just a couple, just a little hair. It can be a little bit lower, just a hair. That doesn't really matter. But if you have, I was just messing around with my steering, and if you have it set up like this where your track bar is higher or your steering's lower, your steering drag link's higher and your track bar is lower, what you're going to get is actually bump steer. And especially if you hit off camber stuff on the road and hit bumps in the road, you're going to get bump steer. It's going to pull up side to side. And a lot of people will say my track bar is parallel and it's still doing this. Well, there's a lot more to it than having a track bar and a drag link parallel with each other. Now, if you look up my setup, I actually did a little bit different. I went over the knuckles with the tie rod, and I put the drag link on the bottom of the knuckle. Now, the reason why I had to do this is because you want your drag link and your track bar as parallel as possible, which, as you see, I have that, and you want them as close as possible to the same length. I think my drag link was like 38 inches, and then my track bar was like 38.5 or something like that. It wasn't too far off. So I'm actually pretty close. And if you don't have those measurements right, what's going to happen is when your axle goes to go up and down, it's actually going to pull it side to side, and it's going to move at different motions, and it's actually going to cause you to have bump steer. So not only do you need to make sure that your drag link and your track bar is parallel, you need to make sure that they're pretty close to the same length, because if not, you're going to get some crazy bump steer, and your Jeep might do some crazy things like you just think it's just worn out parts, which it isn't, because the whole front end's rebuilt on my Jeep. So that's where I started. So I got the bump steer figured out. It's not bump steering anymore, right? So like I said, I pieced together this whole lift. So I'm going from scratch. So I got the bump steer figured out. It's not bump steering after I hit bumps. Well, when I'm going down the road, the sucker's wandering like the wind's blowing. It would go this way, it would go this way, and it's not like a bump steer. It was just kind of like the wind was blowing me, and I had to drift it this way, and I had to drift it this way. So the next thing that we're going to figure out is the caster angle. Now, this is very important, because if you do not get this right, this thing will drive like garbage, and this is where people get it wrong. A lot of people will try to get to the stock specs, which I think it's from anywhere to 4 degrees to 8 degrees or something like that, and people aim for like 5 or 6. So what caster is, if we're looking at the wheel, you got positive caster and you got negative caster. As is, you want positive caster. I had to put mine about a 7 degrees. You need a angle finder and put it on your upper ball joint, and then make sure your ground's level where you're parked, and you want to adjust your upper control arms in, and make sure you get the right degrees. Like I said, I'm running 7 degrees positive caster, and this thing rides and drives like a dream. Now, one thing you want to watch out for, if you have a Cherokee like mine, which is a 2000 model, and I think 2001 model had them also, I have a low pinion Dana 30, and if you put too much caster on there, you might point your drive shaft angle down, and it might cause vibration, so you might have to back it off a little bit. I'm good on that, but make sure you keep that in mind while you're adjusting your caster, because it can cause vibrations going down the highway, and you might have to back it off just a hair. Let's say you adjusted the track bar length and you got them parallel with the drag length, and you did the caster angle and you're still getting some weird stuff. Make sure your Jeep's aligned. That is another thing. Make sure it's aligned. And another thing, make sure your tires got the right air pressure in it on both sides, all the way around. And 3, make sure they're not garbage, because I had a set of tires that I've had on my Wrangler, and I throwed them on because I was ordering a wheel and tire package for it, and I throwed these tires on there, and the Jeep started handling like garbage. Well, here to come find out, it was the tires. They were junk. That's just how they were. They didn't track right, and I put the new wheels and tires on there, and it doesn't do it anymore. So last case scenario could be your tires, but just make sure your drag link, your track bar is parallel and about the right length, the same length. Make sure your caster angle is right, and make sure your Jeep has an alignment and good tires, and you should be ready to rock. Now I'm driving down the road. Great. This thing drives really, really amazing. It's nice to have a lifted Cherokee with 35s to go down the road, and you can let go of the wheel and it just tracks straight, and it makes a difference. All the specs will be different for your Cherokee. I'm not saying your drag link and your track bar is going to be the same measurement as mine. I'm not saying you're going to have to run 7 degree caster. You might be able to get away with 6. You might be able to go up to 8 and it does better. Every Jeep is different. So with the setup that I have, the cab fab steering, this is the way I got to run it for now. It does great. It's up out of the way, it's sturdy, it does amazing. This Jeep drives great after I figured up all the measurements, got everything how it's supposed to do. It does great for building this thing in my backyard. So what's left to do on the Cherokee? Not a whole lot. The only thing we got left to do is build the axles. So I'm going to do something that people frown upon and may not agree with, but I'm going to show you that this is going to work and they're going to hold up. Because I just know they will. When it comes to the off-road world, people overbuild stuff for something they're not going to be even doing. I'm not going any bigger with tire size. I'm not going any bigger rim size. I'm not going to be hauling a tent. I'm not going to be hauling a bunch of stuff in the back, just spare tire and tools and recovery gear. So what we're going to do is rebuild the front axle. It's a Dana 30 low pinion, yes, I know, but I have a Dana 30 high pinion on standby. But I want to show you that you can build what you have in your backyard and it's going to hold up. So we're going to rebuild the Dana 30 that come in this Jeep. We're going to pull it out. We're going to re-gear it. We're going to put not a full truss on it, because the way I got my steering set up underneath and my track bar, a full big truss that goes clear across, it wouldn't work for me. It would actually hit stuff that I got made under there for brackets and stuff. So we're going to truss the Dana 30. I'll show you guys how to do that the way I'm going to do it for 35s. We're going to put seat gussets on it. We're going to beefing up the stock brackets on this thing. I'm going to show you how to do all this in your backyard on a budget. We're going to call it the ultimate Dana 30 budget build. Okay, we're going to put better axles on it. We're going to put better brakes, better knuckles, and stuff like that on it. We're going to do the 8 1/4 that way in the rear. We're going to fully truss it. We're going to put disc brakes on the back, upgrade the axles, and re-gear it also, and put put the diff cover and all that stuff on it. It's going to be it's going to be a cool series that we're going to do, and I'm going to show you that me just running 35s, you don't have to go overkill, because the newer 8/8s or the newer 8 1/4s that come in these Jeeps can be just as strong as the 8/8s. So keep that in mind when you're building stuff. So keep an eye out for that series. That it'll be a couple months before that comes out. because we finally got this Jeep to where it needs to be, and we're going to have fun in it this winter. Maybe go on a little trail rides and get some use out of it after we got this thing built up. So just thought I'd make this little video to talk about some things that you need to look at after you lift a Jeep Cherokee, because those were the two main problems that I had when I lifted this Cherokee. That's stuff you don't see on a video, so I thought I'd make a video on it and explain it. Just make sure your drag length and your track bar is parallel and they're about the same length, and make sure your caster angle is where it needs to be, and you'll have a Jeep that drives like a Cadillac, I promise you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you got some information from it. I'm Cherokee Ronnie. Stay dirty, my friends.